And as I said earlier, welcome. And I want to introduce our speaker tonight, Jason Mandly. Jason works with the Butte County Air Quality Management District and leads the district's planning, outreach, and incentive programs. He started with the district in 2011, so you've had 10 years as an air quality compliance specialist and has a background in air monitoring and meteorology. And I want to welcome him and turn the meeting over to him.
Great, thanks a lot for the introduction, Sandra, and thanks for asking me to come join you and speak about air quality. And we've actually been trying this year. It was one of our, I guess, New Year's resolutions to do a little bit more outreach and get out there more, because we've been doing a lot of great stuff over the past few years. We just haven't been very vocal about it, or very self-congratulatory or congratulatory of the public for helping us, because a lot of it is the public that helps us out with a lot of our programs. I am the senior air quality planner for the Butte County Air Quality Management District. We're here in Chico, California. Our office is off of Antler Avenue, down by Wood Brothers Carpet. If you know where the Chico Cat Coalition is, we're right next door. I can hear the cats behind me. They're fabulous. And let me start the share. Let's see if this works. There, can you see my screen okay? Thumbs up if you can see it all right. Oh, great. Great. So with this presentation, I was going to just go over a little bit about the background on air pollution and why it's important here in Butte County, as well as everywhere else. Air pollution it doesn't stop at the county line. It's a concern all across California, the United States, and it's an international concern as well. I'll talk about some of our programs, what we do here with the district, and what we don't do. There's some things that we don't do, not because we don't care about it, but it's because there's some programs like, for example, regulating trucks. That's just something by law that other agencies have the jurisdiction over. Talk about air quality trends. How is our air quality doing? I've only been here for about 11 years now, really enjoying my time in Chico, and it's a great place to raise my family. But I know a lot of folks in Chico have great knowledge and great background on how air quality was at different times of the year, going back decades. So that's very good knowledge to have. And lastly, I'll try to hop off this presentation, go online and show you some web links that are very helpful, especially in times of poor air quality. For example, during wildfires. The health impacts of air pollution, we care about air pollution because various types of air pollution impacts our health in various ways. One of the main types of air pollution that we're concerned with here in Butte County is called particulate matter. It's basically just little bits of stuff. That stuff could be combustion from wood. In some areas, it could be liquid droplets. Some areas, it could be diesel particulate matter, which are little particulates covered in toxics. No matter what it is, if it's small enough to get into your lungs, it's a problem. And it can cause hospitalizations for those with lung or heart disease, emergency room visits for those with asthma, those with COPD. And it can be an irritating factor even for healthy adults or healthy children, especially if it gets to hazardous conditions. PM10, the 2.5 and the 10 that you see sometimes, that's the size of the particle. PM10 are 10 microns in size. We're talking about dust, larger particulates. So anything from a lot of the dust that you might see because of a dirt road, or if you're going by an orchard when they're harvesting the nuts, a lot of that's PM10. Smaller than that is the PM 2.5. And this is what's in smoke, and this is what can really get deep into your lungs. And so we do measure and monitor for PM 2.5 in many areas around Butte County. And I'll talk about that in just a little bit. Ozone is another pollutant that is of concern, especially in California. It's basically the main culprit behind the classic Los Angeles smog. This is the same kind of smog that might be in the San Joaquin Valley. And we actually get impacted by it here in Butte County as well. Ozone is odorless, it's clear. However, it can cause health issues, just like PM 2.5. For a short time, I lived in Southern California, and on days with very high ozone, it felt like I had a sunburn in my lungs. That's kind of how it felt to me. Ozone in Butte County, it's actually the foothill areas that get impacted the most. And that's mainly because of transport. And I'll talk about that also in just a moment. Some of these other pollutants, of course, are a concern, but fortunately, they're less of a concern here in Butte County. Sulfur dioxide is more of a byproduct of heavy industry, more prevalent in the Midwest and the East Coast. Carbon monoxide, fortunately, with engines being more efficient, is less of a concern outdoors, but of course, indoors, carbon monoxide is certainly an indoor air quality issue. Nitrogen dioxide, lead, fortunately with unleaded gasoline, lead issues have decreased. However, it's still a major problem close to heavy industry. And then there are toxic air contaminants. There's hundreds of different types of toxic air contaminants that can be measured or can be tracked. One of the more prevalent ones that almost everyone bumps into, especially if you gas up your car, is benzene. Benzene is in gasoline, and so that's a toxic air contaminant that can be controlled with technology. And of course, there are greenhouse gases and short-lived climate pollutants, methane, black carbon. There's a lot of different pollutants that can impact climate change, and so that can impact human health as well through the effects of climate change. Just going back real quick to ozone, which is also known as photochemical smog. A lot of what creates ozone does not come out of the tailpipes of cars. Ozone is made by a chemical reaction in the air that takes a couple hours, and it also requires sunlight. So this is usually an issue during the summertime. We're not going to have ozone issues during the wintertime usually. Generally, most of we call them precursors. These are the chemicals that actually do come out the tailpipe of a car or from industry or from a smokestack. We have oxides of nitrogen, VOCs. If you've ever opened up an old can of paint and you can really smell that those VOCs, that is contributing to the creation of ozone. And so generally here in Butte County, we of course we drive vehicles, and there are many sources of these pollutants, but most of the ozone impacts that we get here come from urban areas to our south. And so a lot of these pollutants are transported from other areas. Like I said before, the air pollution doesn't stop at the county line. And particulate matter, this is just a diagram showing you how small these particulates are. This is a human length of hair right here. The blue dot would be PM10. So this would be like from dust, larger pieces of larger pollen. And then PM 2.5 are very tiny, they're microscopic. And these are the byproducts of any sort of combustion. It could be vehicle combustion, or it could be wood combustion, like in a fireplace or a wildfire. So here in Butte County, these are where we have our official monitoring stations. All of this monitoring for official record, it's done by the California Air Resources Board. I've been to these sites and I've visited them, but we here at the local district, we don't do the monitoring here. State staff do the monitoring. We monitor for a whole lot of stuff here in Chico. The monitoring station is right next to McManus Elementary School off of East Avenue, if you know where that is. And it has a very sophisticated array of PM 2.5 monitors, ozone, toxics. They have this monitor called speciation where they can pull apart the particulates and figure out what's in it to see perhaps where it came from. We have a pretty basic ozone monitor here in Paradise. as well as PM 2.5 in Paradise. And then we have another PM 2.5 monitor down in South Butte County near Gridley. And those are the official monitors here in Butte County. But there are more particulate sensors now, and I'll get into that at the very end. Just real quick, some folks are often confused, and I sometimes I'm confused too about what we're supposed to do versus what the EPA is supposed to do versus what the California Air Resources Board is supposed to do. And so each agency has their own responsibilities. The US EPA at the national level, what is most important for our area, right here, they establish what are called, they call it the NAAQS. There's a lot of acronyms at the EPA, the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. So there's a standard for PM 2.5, and there's also a standard for ozone. And if we don't meet that standard, that's a problem. And we have to put plans into place to reduce air pollution and to improve air quality so we meet that standard. And they also set national engine standards. They have the ozone and acid rain programs. For certain types of heavy industry, they set standards, greenhouse gas rulemaking. For very large sources, for example, power plants and refineries, they have additional permitting. At the state level, the California Air Resources Board out of Sacramento, we do work with the state quite often, and they have a whole nother set of roles. They do also have state standards, but usually our focus is meeting the federal standards first. A lot of our grants and incentives that we do, and I'll talk about that in just a moment, a lot of that funnels down from the California Air Resources Board. So I work with staff there to get a lot of the grants that help improve the air quality here in the Chico area and also throughout Butte County. They also help us with emergency response, and they set a lot of what are called air toxic control measures. And these regulations are really what are driving the regulations that are impacting trucks, vehicles, and other mobile equipment. We here at the district, we cannot regulate trucks, cars, trains, or airplanes, anything that moves by itself. We cannot regulate it. That's up to the state and the federal agencies. But we do try our best to help out with grants and incentives. And throughout California, there are 35 different air districts. Some of them, like Butte County, is just the county. So that makes it easy for us. We're just the Butte County Air Quality Management District. But other places around the state, you may have heard of the South Coast Air Quality Management District. It's the most populated one. It basically includes the entire LA basin, Orange County, also going out into the Coachella Valley. Then there's also San Joaquin Valley and Bay Area are fairly large air districts. So here in Butte County, our district, we're responsible for trying to meet these federal air quality standards. And we do this through a couple different actions. We have emissions inventories where we try to tally up what are all of our emissions from all of our potentially polluting sources. And this could be gas stations, it could be factories, it could be boilers, large engines. We make plans to attain the standards if we are not meeting them. We also participate through the CEQA process. If there's a large development going in, we will comment and make sure we do have thresholds, air quality thresholds for planning purposes and also for large developments that go through CEQA. We do have rules and regulations, and we can enforce that. Usually we try to do compliance assistance at first, and then if necessary, we do have ways to enforce our rules and regulations. And some of those rules are about fugitive dust. Some of them are about open burning. Some of those are about public nuisance, visible emissions, different types of coatings, for example, automobile coatings, or even architectural coatings. Like if somebody's going to be painting a new apartment complex, those coatings have VOC limits. And again, that's to reduce the amount of VOC that's emitted, to reduce the amount of ozone that we have to deal with. We have permits and we do inspections at a variety of different sources around Butte County. You may have seen some of these, but we have large boilers, engines, wood product manufacturing, sand and gravel and asphalt plants, ag processing equipment such as rice hullers, almond hullers, rice dryers, different ag processing equipment, gas stations, spray booths, dry cleaners, etc. We also try to track toxic air contaminants. We do have an engineer on staff that takes a look at all of the new sources that could come into Butte County, or even existing ones, to make sure that there are not concerns regarding toxic air contaminants. We can do modeling to make sure that risk is within regulation. And here's an outreach that we did recently. Like I mentioned before, one type of toxic air contaminant is benzene. So that nozzle, that boot that you have to deal with when you're trying to gas up your car, what that's doing is it's capturing all the vapors, so you're not breathing in benzene. Also, those vapors are a VOC, a volatile organic compound that can contribute to ozone. And so that's the reason for that sometimes annoying, I know for me at least, that annoying boot that you're trying to get into your car to fill up with gas. Probably the most well-known program that we have is our open burning program. And we have our burn day and no burn days. There's 3 different types of burning that goes on in Butte County. One of them is the agricultural burning. There's a very rigorous rice straw burning program. It's very intensive. There's a lot of hoops that the rice farmers need to go through to be able to even burn rice straw. Orchard prunings, field crops, ditches. For residential dooryard burning, we work with CAL FIRE to make sure that folks know CAL FIRE's regulations. Of course, they have a burn ban during the summertime where there is no residential burning. And sometimes when residential burning opens up, CAL FIRE requires a permit before and after the dry season. And then we also have prescribed burning. We've been working with land managers for decades to handle forestry, fuels reduction, and also wildlife management projects on the valley floor, as well as in the foothills and in the mountains. Some of the public outreach efforts that we do, one of them is called Check Before You Light. This is one that I do. And fortunately, it's really helped out over the past 10 years. As I'll talk about a little bit later, we were in trouble, Butte County, with PM 2.5, and it was mainly a wintertime issue. Especially in Chico, folks really liked using their wood stoves, still do. And the smoke levels in Chico, it caused us to exceed those federal health standards that I mentioned earlier. And so one of the ways to help bring us into attainment with those standards was our Check Before You Light program. November through February, we have this program where we will call an advisory if we expect bad air quality. We only issue this advisory maybe a couple times each winter, fortunately, but every winter there's usually a couple days where the weather conditions get really bad for burning. There's very stagnant air, little or no wind, cold temperatures. And so we know that if everyone was burning just as normal, it would lead to unhealthy air. So we do have these Check Before You Light advisories for Butte County. Our program is voluntary. However, within the city limits of Chico, the city of Chico government issued an ordinance making it mandatory with several exceptions. If wood is your only source of heat, or if you have a newer EPA compliant wood stove, you could still burn, even if we called an advisory. We also have, we issue these air quality recommendations for Butte County schools. We worked on this document with Butte County Public Health and Butte County Office of Education to give some guidance to the various school districts on what are some appropriate activity levels for the different air quality index levels. Speaking of the air quality index, we do daily air quality index forecasts. So every day, every single day, even if it's a weekend or a holiday, you can go to our website and you can see what our forecast is for that day's air quality. Here's an example where on this day, it looks like good air quality was forecast for pretty much everywhere in Butte County. The air quality index, and a lot of you may have become very familiar with it, unfortunately, during these wildfires, but it's an index that shows what are some of the different actions to take depending on how bad the air quality is. For example, we have this code orange here, unhealthy for sensitive groups. And that's an area where healthy adults may not be impacted by that smoke. However, sensitive groups such as those with pre-existing conditions or children or our elders, they might be more susceptible to even a small amount of pollution. Then of course we have unhealthy, which is just, it impacts everyone. And after that, very unhealthy, and then hazardous. And unfortunately, we have had several hazardous days throughout Butte County the past few years with our wildfire impacts. During wildfire impacts, we do have extra monitors that we can set up. We have, this is called an EBAM, but it's a pretty rigorous piece of equipment that we can set up anywhere. It has a little weather station next to it. So we know the wind direction and wind speed, but we set this up whenever there's a wildfire, especially if there's a hole or a gap missing in our knowledge. We often put it in the Oroville area because if you remember that map of where we're doing our monitoring, Oroville does not have one. So we often put it in somewhere in Oroville. And these little guys, this is, you can probably hardly see it. It's about the size of a softball. And they're called purple air particulate sensors. And these just started becoming available around 2017 or so. And they are making air quality a lot more easier to access for millions of people. And it's kind of changing the ways that people see air quality, especially if they get their information on their smartphone, or if they watch the news, or if they go online to see what the air quality is. These little guys, they're called low cost sensors. You can even buy one for yourself if you want to put in your backyard. They're about $250 or so, and they just hook onto your Wi-Fi network, and it'll show you. I'll show you the map in just a moment, but we have a network of these now around Butte County that we've been installing, especially up in the foothills. We have them now in Forest. Well, I'll show you where I put them when it gets to the map. So during wildfires, this is something called the Air Now Fire and Smoke Map, and I'll do a tour of this map at the very end of the presentation. But I like this map during wildfires because it shows you the official monitoring stations, which are circle. This is the one I mentioned on East Avenue, and you can see some of the gadgets that they have up there on top of the roof. So these are very expensive pieces of equipment, very accurate. However, they're only sitting in one spot in Chico. So, you know, folks that are in Forest Ranch, they might not be getting the same air quality as that one location in Chico. So we needed, so these purple air sensors, which are these little squares, they help fill in the gaps. And we've installed some in Magalia, Forest Ranch, Cohasset, Butte Meadows, Concow, Berry Creek, Forbestown, Nord, pretty much every community in Butte County, we've tried to put one of these purple air sensors. These sensors are not, of course, as accurate as the expensive equipment, but it gives you a ballpark estimate. And for a lot of people, that's what they need if they want to know if they can go outside. Like I mentioned before, here's that portable EBAM that we usually set up in the Oroville area. Grants and incentives. This is my main job here at the district. I spend a lot of time doing planning and outreach, but most of the time I'm doing grants, which is really great because we get to help out a lot of different folks around Butte County with a lot of different types of equipment. One of the ones that helped out the Chico area very much, and also Oroville and Paradise, were our wood stove changeouts. We've changed out about 550 stoves over the past 10 years or so throughout Butte County, with most of those in Chico, and that's helped our PM 2.5 levels come down drastically. We also work with the ag community to change out some of the older diesel ag pumps, tractors, and specialty equipment that they have, like combines and shakers. If you know your ag equipment, we've done most different types, shakers, harvesters. We also work with schools to help replace some of the older school buses. We've worked with Chico Unified to replace some of their school buses. And we're now starting to get into electric school buses, which is very interesting. A lot of the school districts now have several electric school buses in their fleet, which is it's very interesting. These have only been around for 1 or 2 years. So you might see more and more of those traveling around Butte County. And a lot of those were funded specifically through our community air protection program, which is kind of like another arm of our grants program. This is in Thermalito here, charging up at one of their electric school buses. And we've also, so we're working with electric school buses, but we're also working with schools to improve their air filtration. Some schools have poor filtration for the kids that are in their classrooms, that might not be filtering out enough smoke or air pollution, especially during wildfire events. So we're working with some schools to improve their air filtration. We also just did a small round of these small grants that support small community sourced programs. Basically, we opened it up. If a community organization had an idea, any idea to reduce air pollution somehow, we had a small amount of grant funding for them. This is one example from the Butte County Resource Conservation District. They have the Prescribed Burn Association, which is attempting to empower private landowners in the mountains and foothills to learn more about prescribed burning, how to do it safely, and how to reduce fuels in their area. We also supported the Butte Fire Safe Council, the Magalia Community Park, the city of Chico put a purple air sensor right on Town Hall, or right the 411 Main Street location. So if you go to the Purple Air website, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute, that's the one that's right in downtown Chico. We're also working with Chico Velo to install bike pumps at all of the local schools in Chico, or at least most of them. Okay, so how are we doing on ozone and PM 2.5? So looking at the blue chart first, Chico is mainly impacted by PM 2.5. We do not usually have an ozone issue on the valley floor. It's more of a foothill issue because of that transport. So I'm showing you the number of days that we exceeded the federal PM 2.5 standard. So that standard is 35 micrograms per cubic meter. And so here's 2008. It was a wildfire year, so certainly a lot. And if you pay attention to the blue line, we had some ups and downs, but since 2014, it's been pretty low. 2018, of course, unfortunately, we had the Camp Fire. 2019 was the clearest. It was the cleanest year for air quality in Butte County on record. So this was the first year, and we have records that go back to 2004 1984 for ozone, and the year 2000 for Paradise. But this 2019 was the cleanest year on record, which was good news. And same thing with Paradise, the number of days exceeding the ozone standard. Paradise, unless there's a wildfire, they usually don't have smoke issues because of the terrain, unless it's a very localized issue with a neighbor that's just burning wood improperly. So in Paradise, we generally track the ozone standard, and you can see throughout the years, the ozone number of days that we're exceeding the standard, it was starting to go down, but unfortunately, ozone is also impacted by wildfires. And so these wildfires are kind of making it difficult for us to have years like 2019. Now this chart is a real big mess when you take a look at it initially, but here's what it is. This is every single day since 2004 up until yesterday, here's yesterday, starting in the beginning of 2004, and every single day is marked here with a color. Every little mark with the green means the air quality was good. Yellow means it was moderate. Orange means it was unhealthy for sensitive groups, and so on. And you can see here in 2008, remember the 2008 wildfires? We had the Chips fire here in 2012. Of course, the Camp Fire. Last year's wildfires, and then this year's wildfires. So you can kind of see what time of year we usually see the greatest impacts to PM 2.5. Back in the early 2000s, we had a lot more unhealthy days in the winter time, and we're not seeing as many of those though, however. And a lot of that is due to public participation with our Check Before You Light program, as well as changing out over 500 wood stoves, and that has certainly helped. We were in non-attainment for the federal standard in 2009. We were able to improve by 2013, and by 2018, Butte County officially attains the national PM 2.5 standards. This is the same chart, but for ozone. Here you can really see ozone is a summer problem, like I mentioned before. And this is the highest values recorded in Butte County. And essentially it's our Paradise monitoring station. And you can see we still get some challenges here, especially during wildfire impacts. We are still in non-attainment for the federal ozone standards. That means we're not meeting the ozone standards. However, we're at the very cusp of meeting those. We're very close, we're on the razor's edge. So hopefully we can continue improvements and get over the edge. Okay, so here are some, let me get back to my arrow. Before I go, I'm going to do a quick tour of our website and also show you some ways to check air quality, but maybe this is a natural place to pause before I get into some extra stuff to see if anyone had any questions about that first half.
Jason, I have a question.
Sure.
You mentioned the air quality index, and I think that's one of the ones that I've been looking at regularly. There's another one called Air Now, I think.
Yep.
And one of them has little dots of information. I think that's the one that you were describing based on the monitors, and the other one has big balloon areas of color showing what the air quality is. They don't always seem to agree with each other. Are they using different monitors for that information, or? Yeah,
they are. Yeah, it's a little confusing sometimes. It's really great to have more information, but what's been challenging is now that we have more information, we have websites showing different information. And that's one thing, that's specifically one thing I was about to show you right now, is the different websites that are available and what it really means. Like, what are you looking at? So that's a really good question. Maybe I should jump into that right now. So here's our website right here. If you go to butteairquality.com or BCAQMD.org, we have a daily 24-hour air quality forecast. Now remember, this is for a 24-hour period. So this, if you need to know what the air quality is in your neighborhood right now for the next 10 minutes, this box might not give you the best look. But if you click on Chico, South Butte County, or Paradise, it'll send you to Air Now, which Sassy just mentioned. So Air Now used to be, and it still is, the #1 air quality index website for the entire country. It's looked similar to this for decades. And this is the huge swath of color that she mentioned. Air Now is only looking at official air quality stations. So in Butte County, that means only one in Chico, one in Paradise, and one near Gridley, nowhere else. It's not looking at any of the purple air sensors or any portable sensors. It's just showing you the official sensors. So for wildfires or for smoke, I think this is not the best website anymore. However, for summertime smog, for ozone, this is the only website that will give you a good AQI for ozone, which again makes it confusing because a lot of our other resources on the fire and smoke map, they're only showing you smoke. They're not showing you ozone, which can be a problem sometimes. So here it's showing AQI in the good level for Chico. Going back to our website, here's the one I like, especially if there's wildfire smoke. This is called the Air Now Fire and Smoke Map. And it's, if you want to just remember the website, it's fire.airnow.gov. So it's still by the AirNow system, but it's designed specifically for fire and smoke applications. It takes a second for it to load up once you click on it. Sometimes it might ask for your location. And on this one, instead of showing you those big areas of color, you can zoom in. And it might take a second if you have slower internet, but you can zoom in all the way to your neighborhood. And like I showed before, it'll show you the official stations. Like here's our official station in Chico. Here's our official station over here in Paradise. But all of these little squares are the purple air sensors, those little tiny softball sized sensors. Regular Air Now does not consider these, but here you can zoom in neighborhood by neighborhood and you can click on it. And it'll show you some information what the air quality index is. Here's if you prefer to see it on a scale, that's the next graphic. If you scroll down, it'll give you some health recommendations based on that AQI level. Scroll down some more, it'll look at the trends. If it's getting higher and higher, it'll let you know, or if it's improving, it'll let you know. This is my favorite part because I like data and charts and graphs, but this will show you how air quality was over the past few days, hour by hour. And so you can kind of see how it goes up and down and up and down. What'll be interesting is if you go anywhere in Chico, especially in some of the older neighborhoods, I'm sure you'll see it go up at nighttime. Hey, look at this. In this particular neighborhood, looks like it got up, at least at that person's house, it got up into the unhealthy category, 11 o'clock at night. So I wonder what was going on at 11 o'clock by night. My guess is some wood stoves were probably in use right around in that neighborhood. So this is the fire and smoke map, which will show you all those purple air sensors. The one thing that also confuses people, I don't want to confuse you, but I have to mention it because some folks call me, at their wits' end trying to understand this. This fire and smoke map is showing you a 1 hour average. It's just how the EPA really likes to work. They went from a 24-hour average to a 1 hour average, and it's hard for them to budge, getting smaller, getting more and more real time, because their focus is data accuracy, and they want to make sure that the data is accurate and quality controlled, and they're just really comfortable with sticking with a 1 hour average. But a lot of folks, including myself, we want to know the air quality right now. I'm going outside right now. What's the air quality right now? So for those of you that cannot wait, you can just go straight to the source. This is purpleair.com. And so if you just remember purpleair.com, or you can Google it, this will show you the actual sensors in real time. Actually, you can click up here. This is showing you a 10-minute average. You can change that to real time, and it'll just keep refreshing. Every time the number changes, it'll keep refreshing. these little purple air sensors, they work off of, they have these little lasers that count particles, and they're definitely not as accurate as the permanent air stations. They do read high, especially in times of heavy smoke. See, you can do different averages here. There's 10-minute average, 1 hour average, if you wanted to have it look similar to the air now fire and smoke map. The default is 10-minute. They also have these conversions. They have this excuse of why they have different conversions. Basically, the excuse is particles act differently depending on what's going on. And so we recommend the US EPA conversion. And if you do the US EPA conversion with 1 hour, that's pretty much what's showing up on the air now fire and smoke map. But if you're on the Purple Air website, let me just refresh it so it looks like you just showed up. The default will be 10 minutes to give you kind of close real time without a conversion. And here you can zoom around different neighborhoods. Some of these purple air sensors are ours. For example, we have one here at our office. We have one at Chapman Elementary. Many of the ones in the foothills are ours, but also a lot of folks install them themselves. These ones with the circle around it, those are inside. Those are inside somebody's home. You can turn those off. And I wish they were turned off initially, because some folks call us sometimes asking why the sensor next to their sensor is so much different. It's because it's inside someone's house. So you can turn off the inside ones. You can go to any community around, or you can zoom out and just, the colors, they really tell a story, especially if there's a wildfire. It's great having so many of these around the state because you can really tell where the smoke is. This time of year, you're going to have lots of pockets of red popping up next to green because of localized wood stove use. But sometimes you can see if there's a major widespread air quality issue. I think they have, I'm not going to zoom out too much because I might crash my computer in the middle of your presentation, but you can, I think they're starting to install these around the world. So sometimes you can compare, what's going on over in China. The thing about purple air is it gives you a lot of great information, but sometimes you'll see, like right here, here's hazardous air quality. If you see purple after purple after purple after purple, you can be pretty confident that there really is a widespread air quality issue. And this time of year is when, this part of India experiences, frankly, hazardous air quality because of various factors in northern India. But going back to California, meanwhile in Hawaii, if only. But meanwhile, back in California, when you're on purple air, it's a really handy tool to get real-time air quality information, especially if there's one of these sensors by your house. But if it gets really high all of a sudden, it could just be because the person who owns it, they might be having a barbecue, or they might be smoking a cigarette next to it, or who knows. So just one word of caution when looking at these. But they really have, overall, they're great. I mean, these purple air sensors are allowing communities that have never been represented on any EPA map to do their own monitoring, to check out their own air quality in their area. So even though they're not as accurate, I think they're really beneficial to have this information. And I look forward to any improvements that they have to make it even more widespread. So that's the Purple Air website. The Fire and Smoke Map, which tries to include the Purple Air sites while doing some quality control and some correcting. And they also add the official monitors. So it's kind of a halfway step. And that's our, So going back to our main website here, I'm getting, I guess, close to the end of my presentation. Just wanted to show you some of the resources we have. If you want more information about what to do during a wildfire, we have this quick links section. If you click on wildfires and air quality, we have lots of links to a lot of the same websites. Here we link to Purple Air. We link to the Alert Wildfire Webcam Network. If you are really interested in tracking smoke and don't know about that, it's a system of webcams set up all throughout California. Some of them are sponsored by PG&E, some of them are sponsored by the Forest Service or CAL FIRE, but there are cameras everywhere now looking. Their main objective is to look for smoke to help prevent wildfires. And then down here, we have some recommendations on what to do while there is a wildfire. And a lot of it is, make sure if you're inside, the best place to be during hazardous smoke conditions is inside. We don't want you to be outside. And make sure that you're running your air on recirculate. Now is the time to get filtration in your house. If there's a wildfire, I don't know if you've ever tried to go to Home Depot to get a filter during a wildfire, but they sell out so fast. So right now during the winter time is a great time to make sure that you have, if you have an HVAC system that takes those big square filters, you want to get a couple of those that are high efficiency, like MERV 13. That's a MERV rating is an efficiency rating of those filters, or get a portable HEPA filter, even if just for one room. You just have filtration even just for one room, so that you can make it through a wildfire episode. One thing I wanted to show you before I end here, we just now this year created a publication with the News and Review. We have a link to it here. We have hard copies in our office, so if you want a nice newspapery hard copy, we're happy to share it in our office. But we created this brochure, or this publication with the News and Review earlier this year during Air Quality Awareness Week. And this gives you just another good overview of our district and what we've been up to. It kind of talks about the top 10 sources of pollution in Butte County, some of our different programs. We have a nice article here about Sierra Nevada, some of the great air quality work that they have been doing, and some of the choices that they've been doing to reduce emissions. We have an interview with one of our local farmers talking about how he participated in our grants program. Here's an infographic of the various grants that we worked with over the past 10 years. Interviews with local school districts, Q&A with my boss, our director, Stephen Earle, the air quality index guide itself, and ways to find information and how to contact us. So that's available on our website. And like I said, if you want a hard copy, we have a bunch here. And we can always, I guess we can drop some off too, if you ever wanted to. We'd be happy to drop some off. Last thing, I promise, very last thing, because I know that the league is very civically minded. Also, always on our front page here, a link to our governing board site. Our governing board meets usually every month. And we've had folks from the league at our board meetings in the past, and we have our agenda posted, our board packet posted every month. We usually do a lot of our cheerleading in our board reports, which frankly not many people read, and we wish they did. So if you're ever interested in the details of some of the programs that we're doing, a lot of that's buried in our board packet, unfortunately. But the public is always welcome. Our board is made up of folks that you probably know. We have the 5 county supervisors and a representative from each of the 5 cities in Butte County. And so those are our board members. And that's my presentation, but I'm happy to go a little bit further on some of the, I know there's a lot of different things that we do and a lot of information all at once, but I'm happy to talk some more about anything.
Jason, Jane had a question a while back when you were looking at a particular, it might have been the fire and smoke map. There was a pulsing blue dot.
Oh, that's your location. So that was my location, I guess. Here, let me go back. Let's see, what is the pulsing blue dot? So let me go, there's probably the fire and smoke map. So let me, you're relating to it right here. Give it a second for it to think about where you're at. And this fire and smoke map is new too. This is they started it last year and they enhanced it a little bit this year. Before last year, it was people were in the dark. All they had was the Air Now site. And you can imagine folks looking at the Purple Air website and looking at Air Now, and folks got really confused. So this fire and smoke map really helped out. Sorry, my internet is being kind of slow right now. If for some reason it does not load again, that pulsing blue dot is your location. So if you load up the map and you see that blue dot, it's probably geolocating you based on where your computer's at, or at least where your server's at. So that's just showing your location. Here, I think it's, yeah, unfortunately, I think my internet is slowing down for some reason.
Well, we're used to that sort of thing. I noticed, Jason, that you didn't mention anything about wearing masks being helpful for this kind of pollution.
Right. So masks, masks are certainly an interesting topic. We do have information on our website on that same page that this is loading up. On that same page, let me go back to wildfires and air quality. We do have some information on masks. And actually we link to, here's Butte County Public Health's page. We work with the Public Health Agency a lot during wildfires, and they're the health experts, they're the doctors. I'm just a weatherman, a meteorologist, so I'm not a qualified doctor, and wearing masks sometimes gets into the realm of being a medical issue. If it's very hazardous air quality out, our guidance is just to stay inside. We understand though that some folks need to be outside during poor air quality. And so on Butte County Public Health's website, they have a section here on masks for folks that must be outside for long periods of time, or in heavy smoke, or where there's ash. Of course, the mask should be an N95 mask. It should be rated at N95, and it should be properly fitted, because if it's not fitted well, then it's not working and you're breathing in that smoke. A bandana or even a medical mask, which has of course become so prevalent during the age of COVID, that also does not work as well for wildfire smoke. It just doesn't filter out the smoke. It's so small, the particles are so small, it just goes right through it. So if you need to be outside during poor air quality conditions and can't avoid it, then wear an N95 mask. But again, there's our public health office, they do have some caveats, because wearing a mask, they're not usually fitted for children. If you have breathing difficulties, sometimes that when you have that N95 mask on, it does restrict your breathing a bit, so that could exacerbate some issues. And so that's kind of where, at least where we fall on masks. We do have some little cards at our front desk. It's from the US EPA, and it shows how to properly fit an N95 mask. Did that answer your question, or?
Yes, that certainly did. I think this is all really great information.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you.
So here's, okay, so the website is working again. Here's the blue dot. That's my location.
Aha.
So I'm sitting here's, and this is where our office is if you want to visit us. We're just off of Antler Avenue. Here's Wood Brothers Carpet. You can come, we're over here, right where it bends towards Midway. And we do have our purple air zones right here. So you can see how we're doing. Oops. Great, any other questions?
What process do you use to determine where you're going to distribute the grant money? Like, well, what process?
Sure. So we have a let me exit out of here so I can just be full screen on here. So we have a couple of different processes depending on what grant we have. Usually the grants that we do have some rules that we have to follow by either the California Air Resources Board or whoever gave us the money for the grants. They usually have rules for it. Starting with the wood stove grant, we unfortunately had only a few years of funding for the wood stove change out grant. So what we did is we had we did outreach. We partnered with the local retailers, and then we essentially it was just first come, first serve for those grants. We did have higher voucher amounts for low income qualified applicants, but essentially it was first come, first serve until the money was exhausted. For our Carl Moyer program and our tractor replacement programs and our heavy duty diesel equipment replacement, we have an application process where we're open 1 month for applications. We get all the applications that are submitted and we rank them based on cost effectiveness. So we will take all the applications and we will find out which ones are reducing the most amount of pollution for the least amount of money. And so we will rank them based on cost effectiveness. And we have on our website, we have for that Carl Moyer program, we do have our policies and procedures document that really go into all the nitty gritty and detail about how we rank our projects.
Thank you.
On ozone, what's the national standard now, parts per million? Is it 10 or 12?
For ozone, it's 70 parts per billion. In 2008, it was 75 parts per billion. And we at first Butte County was exceeding that, but then we got into attainment around 2015. Then in 2015, the US EPA dropped it to 70 parts per billion. And so that's what we're trying to meet this year. Now there is discussions that the US EPA are still looking at ozone. There's still continuing science, research, and health studies about the impacts of ozone. And there's still folks arguing that the standard should still be yet lower. So the US EPA may lower it again from 70 parts per billion, even lower, perhaps somewhere into the 60s, I'm not sure.
It used to be 12 parts per million.
I'm sorry?
It used to be 12 parts per million.
So we do have our annual PM 2.5 for particulates. That is 12. That one's 12 micrograms per cubic meter. And so that one we are meeting that one.
Do we have any idea of what impact the changing requirements for small engines will have on air quality?
Oh, that's interesting. So, and for those of you that aren't aware, the state legislature and the governor just approved. I forgot the bill number, but they just approved a bill. Basically, it'll eventually phase out the sale of small engine equipment like lawnmowers, leaf blowers. Think of those kind of pieces of equipment. They want all of those to go electric. And actually, if you look in the board report, if you go to our governing board board packet for last month, I made a chart showing. Actually, you know what? Since I have it here, real quick, share screen 2. Okay, back to my website. So you're going to governing board. Here's our board packet. And I was notifying our board that we have grants available or potentially available for these smaller pieces of equipment. Excuse me while I scroll real quick through. There we go. So here's a chart right here that I put together. I mentioned earlier that we do these emissions inventories to estimate what are the emissions of everything: cars, trucks, railroads. And so we have 2 different types of pollution here. We have oxides of nitrogen here, which forms smog, ozone, and also reactive organic gases, which is very similar to VOCs. This is all of our lawn and garden equipment. This number here is tons per day. So, if you see our VOCs in Butte County, it's about 0.5 tons of VOCs or reactive organic carbons per day from the lawn and garden sector, those small engines. That's residential and commercial. The landscapers that go around and do their work. These are all of the on-road vehicles in Butte County. All the cars, all the trucks, all the everything on the road. And this is all of our off-road farm equipment. So we just wanted to compare, this versus just 2 other common categories in Butte County. And lawn and garden actually emits more VOCs or reactive organic carbon gases than all of the off-road tractors in all of the county. And so it's pretty significant. So that to answer your question, I think it will certainly reduce these 2 charts here. It'll reduce that in Butte County. More importantly, it's going to reduce those emissions in the Sacramento metropolitan area and also the Bay Area. As I mentioned before, we get a lot of our air pollution for ozone from transport from areas to our south. So emission improvements there will help us here. And what CARB is working on now is trying to have adequate grants and incentives for those that are inspired and those that want to get ahead of the curve. They want to make sure that residences and businesses, especially commercial businesses that want to get ahead of the curve, can find incentive funding to help start changing out their electric, their gas equipment with electric.
Thank you.
Okay,
We have a couple of questions in the chat. The first from Deborah Barger. Please review the process for issuing ag burn permits and prospects for chipping orchard debris from annual pruning to eliminate burning. Okay, yeah, that's a burning question for sure. And we have, at this time there's certainly, and I used to be, when I started here, I was a compliance inspector, and so I would have the burn day, no burn day, and we'd make sure that no one was burning on a no burn day. The past few years I've been doing more grants, and I'm a little detached from the burn program, but I'll try my best. But there's certainly a lot of ag in Butte County, and a lot of the ag debris, a lot of it is burned. There is a shrinking amount of chipping options, at least at commercial scale in the area.
there was the Pacific Oroville Power biomass plant that used to take some of the wood waste, the plant in Oroville. However, that has closed. And so for a lot of the large commercial scale chipping, that is still something that that a lot of those that handle biomass, and not just for ag burning, but for handling a lot of the wood waste up in the forests. Also the burnt trees from the wildfires, and also there's the dead and dying trees from the bark beetle that's still an issue throughout a lot of the Sierras. There's just there's a lot of work being done trying to figure out biomass options for the ag sector, from prescribed burning, trying to find alternatives to just burning it in place. The process for issuing a burn permit for a farmer, they would just come into our district, notify us of how many acres that they're farming, and there's a fee for the burn permit. And then once they have the burn permit, it's valid for one year, and they would need to call us daily on each day that they're burning, let us know where they're burning. And if for certain types of burning, if it's a little bit larger than just a small pile, for example, if it's orchard removal burning, where they take out the entire orchard, if it's anything that's going to create a substantial amount of smoke, they need to speak to one of our inspectors in person, and they will look at the meteorology of the day, the air quality of the day. But each day we will be looking at the air quality before we issue our burn day status. There are many no burn days where the farmers cannot burn because of poor air quality, because of wildfires, also because of fire risk. We'll call no burn days if CAL FIRE requests that. And so that's our process. We have a permit. They have to call us and leave a message or talk to us in person if it's a large enough burning operation. But as far as future options for not burning, that's still something that's kind of caught up in just what to do with a lot of the biomass that we have. Options to. We're still looking for more options.
Okay. Another question from Roxanne Ferry: who can make the official measurements for ozone, carbon dioxide, etc.?
Great. So for ozone, this one I do know very well, because I used to run a monitoring station for the Morongo Band of Mission Indians in Southern California, and so we do have an official ozone monitor in Chico and in Paradise. There's also one on top of the Sutter Buttes, which is pretty interesting. And there's also these devices all throughout the state, and these are at least in our district, they're operated by the California Air Resources Board, and they're very rigorous. They get audited. They have very stringent siting requirements, data quality control and quality assurance requirements, and they have to report all that data to the state, and the state has to report that all to the US EPA. And so they will, that all the raw data gets sent to the US EPA, and all that raw data is available. I didn't go over that in our presentation, but if you want to see, what was the air quality on September 3rd, 2013, all that data is available to the public. Ozone and PM 2.5 and any other of the official health-based pollutants, and then they will analyze the data, and then they'll see if we attain the standard or not. Carbon dioxide, greenhouse gases are kind of in their own world as far as monitoring. They are measured by academia. They're measured. The California Air Resources Board does have several greenhouse gas monitors. I think also on the Sutter Buttes, they also have methane monitoring, which is interesting. So there certainly is greenhouse gas measuring going on, but that goes through a different process than the health-based pollutants like particulates or ozone. So I hope that answered your question. I'm happy to talk more about that if there's another question about that.
Really appreciate how much you've shared with us this evening. I want to give people a chance to ask a last question or two or to make a comment. We have a few minutes left. So if anyone wants to jump in, feel free to unmute yourself. Otherwise, we want to thank you very much for sharing so much information. And what I really like is knowing about your website and the resources that are immediately to hand when I go searching for things. I think that's going to be incredibly valuable.
Great. Well,
Thank you very much, Jason.
Thanks for the invitation, and feel free to contact me. I'm not sure if my contact information is available through your channels, but feel free to email us or contact us with any questions or concerns. And we also do take complaints. If you see something and you're like, hey, that's not right, let's or if you have any questions about grant programs.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording.
Yeah.